Hello guys, welcome to tutorial number 4. As we discussed last time, I'm very sorry, I was feeling very bad, quite ill. Now I'm feeling a little bit better, but we will cover tutorial 4 now on market structure and also some cost curves. So I also appreciate you being supportive of this and allowing me to deliver this tutorial through this video, which I will sure be useful to you, especially because the topics that we're going to see now are actually quite important, especially this idea of market structure. Because in market structure, we will see that is like a cohesive way of making sure everything that we learn throughout the course now comes uh, and it's more practical to you. Okay, so we will be discussing mostly market structure, but I also want to say a couple things about this idea of cost curves and especially go through exercises 1 through 3 of the tutorial. So for this reason, I have prepared this whiteboard, and let's go more or less in order. And first, let's discuss this idea of cost curves and what's the main point about understanding cost curves. So as of now, we have studied economics mostly from the demand side. But now we're moving right to the supply side, to this supply and especially the producer's point of view. Yeah. So we have been working mainly on doing some demand analysis, the marginal revenue. We focus a lot on demand, but now it's turn for supply. This is whole the tutorial 4 and the last part of the course is about understanding supply and producer. And we need to see that producers can actually make decisions in two time frames. Yeah, one of these time frames is what we call the short run, and the other time frame is what we call the long run. Yeah, just let me double check that this thing is recording. Yeah, it's recording. So we have these two time frames. Yeah, and normally it will be the case here when I ask this question in class in the tutorial, it goes more or less like this. So what do you think is the short or the long run? And normally it has nothing to do with time frame. In economics, imagine if we do this in economics. So we will have what short run for somebody short run or very close time might be, I don't know, 1 month, 6 months, 1 year. Maybe the long run could be 2 years, 5 years, 10 years. So there's no systematic way on actually defining what the short run or the long run means. But in economics, we do have a way of analyzing more systematically what do we mean by short run or long run analysis. And this has to do with the production function. So remember, because we're now focused on the producer side of things, on the producer story, on the supplier, we now have that the supplier can produce with this production function. The production is a function of normally we will have some kind of labor or capital. We can have a little more, but let's stick to this just very simple production function at the moment. The thing is that we have two factors of production, right? Yeah, these are called factors of production. And we have these two factors of production that actually lead to some kind of or quantity produced for the supplier. The thing is that we can actually understand short run and long run by defining some restraints or constraints, sorry, some constraints to these factors of production. And we say that we're in the short run if one of these factors of production is fixed. So for example, if we say that labor capital and we say that labor is fixed, that we cannot change capital, then we're in the short run. Yeah. And imagine this, because it's normally easy to change labor, right? We can basically contract or get someone to join a job quite easily. But making capital available, buying some equipment, buying a new plant is very difficult, right? So in the short run, no matter how time it makes, I can actually vary or change one of these factors of production, normally labor, but capital is fixed. I cannot change capital in the short run. So this is why we call it short run. And in the long run, the opposite happens. In the long run, then we can actually vary both labor and capital. All the factors of production can vary. We can change everything. So this is the long run. Yeah. No matter, it's not a matter of time, but actually a matter of if I can vary or not the factors of production. So if I was, for example, to have, let's say we have a production function that has labor, capital, technology, let's say investments, I don't know, let's say also it's a matter of investments, some raw materials, yeah. How do we know if we're in the short run or in the long run? If there is any, and we come again to this idea of fixed factors of production or varying factors of production. If any of these, of all of these factors of production is fixed, then we're in the short run automatically. It doesn't matter that we can vary. For example, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 factors of production. It doesn't matter if we have 4 factors of production that are varying. If one of these is fixed, then we're in the short run, in economic analysis at least. So again, to repeat myself because it's very important, it doesn't matter the number of factors of production that are varying. If even one of the factors of production is fixed, then we call this the short run in economic analysis. If we can actually vary and there's no restraint on this and we can actually vary all the factors of production, then we're in the long run. Okay, so this is very, very important because now in your exams, for example, if you see that there's kind of a mention in the exam that one of these factors is fixed, then you know to do. So if it's fixed, then you know to do short run analysis. But if it's the case where everything can actually move or change, then you have long run analysis. Okay, so in this case, because everything can vary, then we have long run analysis. This is the main point about this. Okay, so this is a very key important distinction to understand about short run and long run. But again, the main point here is if it's something, if a factor of production is fixed, then you have the short run. If all the factors of production can vary, then you have the long run. And the second important part that we need to touch upon this here, according to the exercise and to the question, is to understand what's driving the shape of the curves. Okay, so if we have here, let's plot the marginal cost curve, and we see that we have maybe this plot. We have quantity on one side. We have, in this case, dollars, money, but this is about costs. Yeah. So let's plot the marginal cost curve here. You will see from your textbook that the marginal cost has this function, has this shape, where we have MC. Yep. And it's at the beginning it's decreasing, but then it's increasing. By the way, remember guys also that at this point when the marginal cost curve increases, this is also marginal cost curve can also be thought of as the supply curve. Okay. And what's driving this curve? So well, first we need to understand that this kind of analysis, and let me add here also, one second, let me add here an additional curve, which will be the ATC, the average total cost. There's another cost curve over here. And the main point here is that this marginal cost curve, which actually also drives the ATC curve, is driven by diminishing marginal returns. And most importantly, this is the framework, or all of these shapes of curves or this analysis has to do with analysis on the short run. Yeah, because this short run is what leads to the diminishing marginal returns. How can you think about this short run and the diminishing marginal returns? Well, imagine that, remember that we have a production function that has labor and capital, but in this case, capital is fixed. Yeah. And imagine we're producing, we're making production of chairs, or yeah, imagine we have, like if you were in the tutorial class, you have your tables, and you have this very big table that allows to have 8 seats. And we're producing, or we are a workshop that creates some clothing. And then if we begin increasing the number of labor in each of the seats, I will have production increasing, right? But what happens once I cover the 8 seats that I can have for all my workshop workers? And now I increase another, bring some labor more without changing the size of the table or without changing the number of tools, which is the capital, right? I'm essentially fixed with the same equipment. I don't change the equipment, but I begin increasing labor. what happens is we're going to be inefficient, yes? Because now, if we were 8 people that the table supports, then we will be working fine. But if I add 1 more people and when we have 9 producers in the same table with the same tools, it's going to get a little bit clumsy. People are going to get tired and there will be not enough tools for everybody to do their job. So we're actually going to slow down. So here we see that as we increase labor and as we increase the output, we actually have diminishing marginal returns. Our production will be going lower and lower and lower. And that is why, because we have one of these production factors of production fixed, then we have this inefficiency going forward, and that's why the marginal returns diminish throughout the curve. Yeah. So the very, very important point is that in the short run, the marginal cost curve or the total cost curve is actually driven by the idea of diminishing marginal returns. This is very, very important, and this is because we have one fixed input of production at least, and by increasing the other, we can actually not produce at a very efficient manner. But what happens now if we look at the long run? So if this is what drives, if diminishing marginal returns is what drives the short run, how can we understand what's driving the long run? And to that, what we can do is actually very cool. Just let me see. Yep, here I can do it. We again now have our cost curve. So we have here costs. And let's plot first an average total cost plot. Let's put this color, maybe this purple. We have the average total cost here, and this is ATC. And again, let's assume we have a production function where we have labor and capital, which are number of chairs. Let's assume it's number of chairs. Yeah. But now there's nothing fixed. Now we can vary everything. So this ATC is the average total cost if I have one desk or one set of equipment or a plant for the production of all my clothes. If I have 2 plants, then I have that the average total cost will be something like this. And begin taking point of these minimum points of the ATCs. Yeah. And let's imagine another now, instead of having 2 plants, I do 3 plants. Yeah. And now I have this structure and still going down. But then we'll have this point, this orange, this average total cost that will be again increasing. Yeah. So we can see that we have 1, 2, 3, 4 short run cost curves. Yeah. But they change or vary depending on the amount of capital that I can change. So because now we can change capital, this factor of production, we have one ATC where capital is 1, one ATC where capital is 2, one average total cost curve where capital is 3, and one average total cost curve where capital is 4. Yeah, and you can see that because we're increasing also the capital, our production is also going up. Our production is increasing because we are varying capital now. Yeah. And what happens is what you need to do here is just identify the minimum points of your graphs, like here, and just link them together. So we go from here to here to here, and we continue. And this plot and this line, this curve, that's going through all the minimum average total costs. Yeah. It's going through 1, 2, 3, 4 minimum points, and it's crossing all these minimum points. This is called the long run average cost curve. Or in your book, you will see it like long run LRAC. And this line, this one over here, the yellow one, is your average cost curve. And this is what will be the cost curve in the long run. So in this case, remember we have these individual short run cost curves, which are the average total cost, but if we fix, in this case, the capital, but as we change the capital and we increase it, in this case to 2, 3, 4, we produce different cost curves. And when we link them all together, then we have all the long run average cost curve. Yeah, because in the long run, we can actually change the amount of capital as much as we like. And in this point, it's very interesting to see that what's driving this shape of the curve. And above, in the short run case, we have that diminishing marginal returns is what's driving the cost curve. In the case of the long run, What drives the cost curve is what we call economies of scale, which, by the way, is exactly the same idea of diminishing marginal returns. As we increase production, we will have, for example, you can see here how costs, as we increase production, costs decrease, but then there's a point, for example, after we go to EC3, that as we increase production, actually costs go up. Yeah. So this is the same idea as diminishing marginal returns. Just the thing is that in the long run, we call this economies of the scale. So the shapes, this is a very simple technique to just remember this, is that the shapes is, if we're in the short run, we call it diminishing marginal returns. But if we are in the long run, we call it economies of scale. So in your exam, if your exam you find that they are asking about diminishing marginal returns, then you know that you're speaking about the short run, or the other way around. If the example is speaking about the short run, you need to now begin analyzing in terms of diminishing marginal returns. But if it says long run, then you go to economies of scale. And in these economies of scale, the plot has economies of scale as it has here, yeah. But we can identify actually three, let's call it three stages. We have here the first stage where, as we increase production, yeah, we're increasing production, so Q increases, but costs are actually going down, yeah. And this is a part of economies of scale. This means that we are increasing production more and the costs are decreasing. Then we have this point over here, which is called the constant returns to scale. And then we have this third stage or phase where as we increase quantity, but costs also increase. And this is called these economies of scale. Yep. So this is what's driving the curve here. And just to make sure I'm getting the point across, remember, the key point from this idea is that the shape of the cost curve in the short run is diminishing marginal returns, and the shape of the cost curve in the long run is economies of scale. I'm going to pause the video here and move on to now the ideas of market structure.